All right. Welcome back to another edition of Ulon.Life. I am your host, PK Soul Keller, Chicago's resource king and street intercessor. Tonight, we have a special guest, of course, and I can't wait to mention this guy, the one and only Julian Cruz. Woo, WGN, yes, awesome. Great to have you. So, I'm just amazed, Julian, that, the real premises of this interview was to show that an average guy, an average Joe that is cool on the streets, that you can meet, that you can actually walk up to and talk, is in such a higher position where he's been renowned. He's been known. He's been somebody that people look up to as a news anchor and have been doing it for years. And so it's an honor to interview you, and I'm so happy. And I know we were supposed to meet a couple weeks before. It finally came through, and bam. So here you are. So, Julian, we're just gonna dump into it. And as you guys know, I usually get into all these jobs, but I think this is a special interview, so I wanna wait. Julian, you have been doing now telecasting, broadcasting for how long?
Well, here in Chicago, when I first met you, it was 27 years ago.
Yes.
Working for WGN.
Right.
But before that, I had about maybe 6-7 years of experience in other markets.
Nice.
So, close to 30 plus years.
And so, has it always been geared around Chicago? Has it been just with WGN? Like, who was before WGN?
Before I came to Chicago, I was in Norfolk, Virginia.
Okay.
And I was working as a general assignments news reporter, out on the street.
Okay.
I was there for 4 years. And
Nice.
before that, I was in Houston, Texas with the CBS affiliate. When I was going to college, I was working there, interning, part-time, and then it turned into like a full-time job when I graduated, not as a reporter, but behind the scenes, learning how to
So what does that
edit.
mean behind the scenes? Name some of the things you did.
Well, in Houston, I was a videotape editor.
Okay.
So I would edit together stories for anchors or reporters. I could go in the edit booth and edit the story together for them, and I would work. They put me on the graveyard shift, working 2 o'clock in the morning.
Right. Which you didn't mind because you were thirsty, you were hungry.
Yeah,
right?
you got to pay your dues, to get your foot in the door.
Yes.
But yeah, so I was in Houston, but Chicago, 27 years. Both of my kids born here in Chicago. Chicago's home for us, and we love it. It's such a great city.
I think it's such a great city. Despite we're when you hear what I do, I'm of course an activist, so I get all the nitty gritty, of course, but What's still endearing to me is that I was born here, and that I know the city, and that I know the good parts and the bad parts. I know how to, intertwine and intermingle and kind of, duck and dodge the places that I know that, are a little bit more hardcore, but the people are still the same wherever you go. You take the bad apples out. I love Chicago, and I always have. We have a different swag here than anywhere, and as I've always said, you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. You really can. It's just such a diverse city. It really is such a diverse city. So what do you think about these two mayors? These two candidates. What's going on with that? You even have an idea of, what do you think one has that the other one might not have?
You're talking about
Brandon, and Vallis,
the mayoral candidates. I think, I look at both candidates, and it seems like they each have things that they bring to the table.
Right.
I agree. Vallis, is financial guy, number cruncher,
Right.
he's good with that kind of thing. But Brandon Johnson is intriguing. I think he would be a candidate
very charismatic.
that Chicago could get really excited about. He's a progressive.
Right.
So
ex-teacher.
Ex-teacher. It would be very interesting to see, the progressive caucus at city council. They've been pushing, trying to get stronger. But to have a progressive mayor would be a very interesting thing. I think it might be good for the city.
Yeah, both very strong in the criminal field as far as what their progressive ideas are toward recidivism and things of that nature. I just want to say though that we'll see what happens. I don't want it to divide the city. As you can see, there's both different ethnicities on each side. That are pushing, and so it's going to be very interesting battle, to say the least.
Yeah.
I don't know, but being a news anchor, I know you've seen some really great stories. Name a story that really caught your eye that just sticks out that was amazing to you, or even funny. It doesn't matter. Something that you just remember that like, oh my God, am I really reporting this?
Yeah. Oh man.
Because you've done so many. So real quick, while you're thinking, let me tell people. So how Julian and I met years ago. There was for those that don't know, Al Capone, the notorious Chicago gangster, had a pub called the Green Mill on the north side, still there. Mm-hmm. And they had done a story about how behind the actual, the tavern part, saying where you have your bar, there's a secret door. And that door trap goes all the way out, all through the, different avenues and leads to Lake Michigan. And this is where they were running, of course, during Prohibition, they were running the different kegs and stuff. And I was called out there this morning by a friend of mine, the famous Mark Smith, who was questionably probably one of the first people ever to do spoken word. Some say he might not be something, but I mean, he definitely was one of the first. And Mark Smith said out of all the ports that he knew, all the spoken words, he wanted to call me because he knew I was going to deliver the fire, the heat. And so I did. I came out there just to show Mark some love. And who was covering the story? The one and only Julian Cruz. And it was an honor that day. And I can't even tell you what the story is about to this day. I just know it was something about Mark, and he had some major thing going on in the Green Mill. But I was so intrigued at how you covered the story. In fact, you are in my video. I came out with a video back then that is an ode to Chicago. And inside that video shows me and you on stage meeting. I'll show it to you later, but it's just really good. And then later on, being the first person in history to write a book from Cabrini, autobiography, you're mentioned in the actual autobiography, Cabrini Green, the P. Keller Chronicles. So that was an honor as well. So again, thank you for all your service through the years. Now, putting the spotlight back on you. So what's a story that sticks out in your mind? Something that was kind of like, oh, wow. Could be anything, because I know you got so many. It's hard to think of even just one. I already know.
Well, I guess, Pete, one of the first things that comes to mind is I've covered some trials, some criminal trials. Rod Blagojevich,
right.
George Ryan,
right,
who was
remember
at
all
the
those.
time he was the former Illinois governor. Mm-hmm. Blagojevich was the sitting governor when he got indicted by the feds.
Right.
I'll never forget that. I mean, there were helicopters in the sky after he got arraigned. After he was arraigned in federal court, and he got in his car and he drove back to his house up in Ravenswood. All the news helicopters were following him. I mean, it was like the story of the century.
Right.
For a sitting governor to get arrested and
he was
indicted.
on the program with Trump. Remember that?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And so I mean,
Trump pardoned him.
He pardoned him,
and he got out. But that was really interesting. To see a trial like that. I had an opportunity to talk to Fidel Castro when I was in Cuba. 1999, George Ryan, speaking of George Ryan, he went down to Cuba with a group of business leaders from Illinois, and this was 1999. So, things hadn't opened up in Cuba at that point, and so he went down there and he encountered Fidel Castro.
Wow.
And so we interviewed him. Not just me, it was like all of the Chicago press corps.
Nice.
And that was being from Cuba, my family from Cuba, knowing all these stories. That was pretty intense.
Very intense. I can imagine. I mean, I can't imagine.
that was interesting. Yeah. That was very interesting. He had very, very long, pointy fingernails. Because he was pointing it in my face, he wasn't too happy with some of the questions we were asking him. But it wasn't just me; it was everybody else too.
Right. So, but you handled that, and that says a lot as being a reporter, and just to be able to cover stories like that and being sent over there, to the homeland. Very intriguing. That's kind of deep. What about Chicago? So here you are, back in Chicago. Are there any hobbies that you have? I mean, it must take so much time, out of your life, being this, you're sent, all over the city, suburbs, wherever, Illinois, period. Do you find time for a social life? How can you possibly? I'm an activist. I'm a resource king. I'm doing all this. I'm an author. Books out. Whatever I do. I barely have time for any social life. So I can just imagine how it is for you. How do you find time?
Get up early, get up real early.
Right.
Get an early start. It's.
Do you have any hobbies? Do you do anything?
I was telling you that I love cooking food. My grandmother was an incredible cook.
Yes.
And I was telling you, I launched this little brand line. It's called Old Havana. And they're authentic cooking sauces and marinades and black beans.
How do they get that? Is that online? How?
We're in most of the Mariano stores.
Right.
And we're in about 20 Whole Food stores in Chicago.
Nice. Interesting fact.
Yeah, we've been around for 14 years, and it's been a battle. Food business is tough.
It's tough.
Really tough.
It's really tough.
You always hear people say, "Oh, the margins are really thin."
Right.
It's true.
I have a friend who, you're so right, because I have a friend who created his own, hot sauce. And just to get into the stores, I have another friend who has, created a beer. Now the IPAs are real big and different hops and stuff like that, which I love. I'm an IPA man, of course. Everybody knows that about me. But one thing I can say is that, getting in the market of putting your stuff on the shelf and being, an underdog. And having to go through the loops of getting rejected at this store, and then told that you can only come back if you sell so many, quantities, of boxes, and those boxes get up to bigger deliveries, and so it's a constant thing. So how did you overcome it? Like, how did you keep pushing?
It was a lot of work, a lot of research. Just figuring out, first off, how do I produce this thing?
Right.
Who will produce it for me?
Right.
Because I don't have money to go out and buy a food plant.
Right.
And they have contract packagers, that'll make this stuff for you. Like if you have a family recipe for a spaghetti sauce and you want to market it, you find a co-packer and he'll make it for you. He'll charge you for it. But then the next battle becomes getting on the shelf, which is very hard to do.
Ooh, yes,
And so, we just got in like basically one store at a time. We get in, and I have a business partner. She lives here in the Chicago area also. She's Cuban American as well.
Nice.
And she's a food
Shout
scientist.
out to the Cubanos, yes.
She's a food scientist, so she knows her stuff. And so we just got in store by store, just bootstrapping our way in. But it's very tough because you're competing against multi-billion-dollar food companies, and here I am, making this stuff. We're barely getting by. So to get on the shelf, you have to prove that people will like the brand line, So you go in, you meet with the store buyers, you present the brand, you let them taste it, you bring a hot sample, let them taste it. Fortunately, it's a really good. Cooking
you guys
sauce.
are giving
People
you a fifth of this inside what we call game, and it's very important. So you guys just understand that I talked about this on like 3 shows ago. The competitiveness of any type of brand that you start is very competitive. Don't stop. As you said, listen to what this. We're really breaking down the motivation, the determination of non-stopping and what you believe in. And I'm so glad that this young man came here, just to say, who's so seasoned in what he does, to even come here. That says a lot about his character. And so he's dropping these jewels, so please pay attention. So what did your family say? Like, how did they think about this? Were they behind it at first? Were they say, "Dad, you crazy," or your wife? Like, how supportive were they really?
Well, my family everybody was real happy and excited. I was telling you, my grandmother was a phenomenal cook.
Yes.
Like, if she was alive today, she would have a cooking show.
Yes.
She was just brilliant cook. And I would make the stuff, and people would try it. Friends would try it. Wow, this is really good. But they were supportive. Everybody was supportive. My poor wife, she supported me as well. And I've been away a lot because, I make deliveries. Like before I go to do my news stories early in the morning, getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, 4:30 in the morning, driving,
to my life.
delivering to stores. That's how we did it. And just bootstrapping it was hard. It was really hard. And we're not out of the woods yet. Even after all these years, as the
Still.
manufacturing costs went up
Right.
with the inflation. You know, the high cost of
And
everything.
it's going to keep going up.
So
right.
it went up 50%, and for a small company like ours, you know, that was really
Definitely,
hard,
right.
really hard. So you know, it's not easy. I just
Hats
warn
off to you
people
for the drive,
if you're
yes.
thinking about it, you know, it's
Just be aware.
It's
right.
hard. And honestly, I think statistically, like if you were to analyze the odds of whether or not you'd be successful, the odds are not
Yes,
with you.
right.
Because like a spaghetti sauce or a hot sauce, there's a lot of brand lines on the shelf. So you're
Yes,
competing
yes.
against all of those guys.
Right.
So
and
anyway,
then not only them, the ones who are trying the same boat that you're in, trying to get in there.
Yeah, trying
and
to push
those
me
are
out.
hundreds and hundreds, you know.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean literally going through the same process. You are meeting with the people. So now there's ones who are there, there's ones that you're competing against just to get on there. And it's the same thing with the music industry. All these young kids trying to be singers or R&B or hip hop or whatever they do, rock and roll. They're competing against so many different talents. Of all arrays, and so it's competitiveness is very hard in the food business. It really is. So hats off to you because you done. That's amazing. So you have that going on. You got this just awesome career. What have been some of the things that you've been awarded for? What are some of the awards that you've ever gotten? What have you been doing? You know, I've heard of a few, but tell us, what are some of the awards you've gotten through the way, and what were they for?
You know, I've been nominated 25 different times, 26 different times through the years for Emmys. I won some awards. I did some investigative stories about the day labor industry, and that's something that really impacts people across Chicago, desperate to find work. And they sign up for these day labor agencies, and sometimes, they don't get a good deal.
Right.
Like they don't get paid what they're supposed to get paid. It's kind of like you go, and then they come and they pick you up. They need a couple of extra guys on a construction site. But there's a lot of, I hate to say it, but criminal activity, like people taking advantage of people. So we did an in-depth report, looking at that. And then a lot of these folks who were, working for day labor agencies were immigrants, didn't speak any English.
I can
so
imagine,
they get taken advantage of, So we did some stories. I was really happy about, that we were able to shed some light on that issue.
What about the issues, like say for instance, when I'm driving all over the city, and when I call traveling, whenever we go anywhere, and we're going by, like say for instance, Home Depot or something like that. You see all these, these brown brothers that are outside, and they're actually, working, and they've almost set up like a strategic way that they can actually be there by, just out there, and they have cards, they have everything that you need. They'll run up to your car, before you get in, and kind of almost plead their case. Well, this is what I have. This is what I can do. Here's my card. If you need any, blah blah blah. And it's interesting. But it's sad because it makes me feel like, wow, we're really getting to that point to it's almost a third world country where people just outside. You go to the next block, 3 people are begging. You go to the next block, panhandling. I mean, it's just so deprived that people are really struggling. Do you think it'll get any better, Julian? What do you think? For all these years, you kind of got an idea. You're in the news field. What do you think is going to happen to the economy?
Well, Pete,
American-wise, basically.
Yeah. We're obviously going through a tough time right now as a country, and as a city in Chicago, and dealing with a lot of issues that I think have been building. Some of these, you talk about the number of people on the street, begging for food or money. I've never seen so many people on the street,
Within the last 10 years, it's just gotten crazy.
Yeah, I think there's been a breakdown, and I just hope and pray that, and I believe that we'll turn things around. Things are going to get better. I guess sometimes things have to get bad before they get better, So, I'm hopeful that, we can come out of this. I worry about, the political polarization, between the two major parties. And,
basically one anyway, when it all gets all the way up there, it's almost like a farce of what's really going on. But I can see your point because I just don't know anymore. You question so much. Is the country getting better? What are we really going through? It's almost time. It's almost like time is speeding up as well too.
Yeah.
You can almost kind of feel. I remember back in the day, watching a half-hour program was really a half hour. An old Cosby show. You go take a break, go to the bathroom, come back, get some popcorn. Sit down with the family. It was. A half hour seemed like a half hour. Now a half hour's like 10 minutes. It's almost like time is speeding up, and not too many people notice it. Talk to a few, but it's almost like time is actually going a little bit faster. Julian, it's just been such an honor. What are some of the things you'd like to leave the people with? Like, what really made you want to get into the field of broadcasting? What were your drives about that?
What we're talking about here, concern about the country, the direction of the country, and these issues that we have to address as a nation, as a city, so if you go into journalism, I always was real curious about the world. I would read newspapers, Time magazine. Like, I was reading Time magazine when I was like 10 years old, 11 years old.
Right.
And I credit my dad,
because
my dad was always like really
Right.
politically astute,
Same with mine,
and he
much
would
so,
talk about stuff at the dinner table.
Right.
So it kind of piqued a curiosity about the
Right.
world,
Right, yes.
the issues in the world that are occurring.
Right.
So I think journalism's a great field, for young people, who want to make a difference and try to uncover,
You guys
some
hear
of
that?
the
Anyone who wants to
injustices.
make a difference, journalism is exactly like Julian says, something that you can get into. This is wide, right? It's a wide array of different fields of journalism, from broadcasting on down to actual behind the scenes, doing the switchboard, right?
Yeah.
And so, it's just. Do you want to give any shout outs to anybody along the way, or anybody that you feel, you just want to say hi to out there? Just show them some love.
There's so many people, like we were talking about Pilsen,
Yes.
and the some of the stuff that I've done in Pilsen with the Mexican American community.
Yes.
And, I've just met the greatest people when you go out into the neighborhoods and you meet people in the neighborhood, and, they just to see what they're doing, it's inspiring. Young kids doing great things. That's always a fun thing to see, or to cover a story like that. My many friends in Pilsen, the folks with the Resurrection Project do great work in Pilsen. So many people across the city. I think back, and it's hard to remember
so
everybody.
many stories. It's just amazing. I come in from work at days, and I'll see you at different times, and I was like, I know that guy, and it's just a treat to be in the position that I have been in the city so long, and to have all these connects, and to have done time with those who are really still out here in the field. It's such a blessing, even with my man Omari in here, and Julie, who's learning the switchboards, and behind the scenes, people have actually taken, a craft and have been doing it for so long. They're known just for that. And so you are known, for that craft. And it's just amazing because I know at times when they tell you have to go a certain place, it could be raining outside, wind blowing, and you're there, it's cold, you're shaking, and you're still on it. And it takes a lot. It takes a lot for news anchors to do that, and that's what we call gusto, drive, go-getterness. And I'm just honored to really, be here sitting next to what I consider a Chicago legend, and wanted to give you your flowers while you're still here, so to speak.
Thank
A
you.
lot of people, they wait and they want to do these big flowers.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of my main reasons for reaching out to you, just so that I could say I had this interview in my archive as a man to say, that I'm showing love to another, a great business attitude, someone who has taken their field and really pushed for it, pushed for the people, has smiled, have been out there, and just really shown a side of you that a lot of people wouldn't do. Because a lot of people won't get out there and do what you do. And so, again, hats off to you, In closing, so before I go, I just want to say that being a news anchor has created so many different fields for you. What would you like to say to the new generation, those who are, we just mentioned before that, why some people might want to do it. But say, for instance, those who are, the young entrepreneurs, the young people that are out there, what are some words of wisdom you can give them?
You know, I think, you know, hard work, there's no substitute for hard work. You know, if you're doing anything that's challenging, you know, that can push through most any situation. You know, if you just work hard at whatever you're doing, and have faith. If you're doing something that you love, you're gonna be successful. You know, that's what I tell my kids. You know, is like, you know, find something that you love to do, which is hard to do. You know, for some kids. Like I know when I was growing up, I had no idea what I wanted to do.
Right.
I mean, I was interested in journalism, but I really, you know, I tried some other different things, but you know, it's just work hard. You know, talk to people, ask people for advice. You know, if there's something you're trying to do, find somebody who's in that field and reach out to them. Say, hey, would you be willing to just spare a few minutes with me? You know, I'm just trying to learn more about whatever it is that you're interested in. And, you know, go and talk to experts and gather research information, and believe in yourself. And once again, you know, if you're doing something you love, I think that's a big advantage.
Nice. Words of wisdom, you guys. That's about it. I just wanted to say, man, again, it's been a pleasure. You know, you've always inspired me, you know what I'm saying, to keep going out there. Because when I get up in the morning and I go grind and get out there and deal with the streets and deal with, you know, the people that I deal with, I see him, you know, early in the morning and late at night and different times. And it's just through the years. And it's inspirational to me because that lets me know that somebody that I know is out there doing it. And so that it inspires me to get out there and continue doing what I do. Again, Julian, man, it's such a pleasure.
Oh, thank you, Pete.
God bless you guys. Again, if you guys have any questions, 312-834-8020. That's the number for resources if you would like a job. If you know anybody looking for rental assistance, any type of things that we do to help our communities out throughout Chicago, we are here for you. Ulon is on the scene. And as always, I want to send love to Omari again and my girl Julie, who's just phenomenal, and they always make it happen for me. Each one, teach one, and don't stop there. Holla back. Peace.